It seemed to me that a common goal years ago when I first started getting into reselling was this arbitrary target of $100,000. This was like a target placed by a lot of resellers for this is when you know when you really made it, when you're really doing a good job. This is when you know you're actually doing something good, is when your gross sales for the year reach $100,000. It took me a while to realize what that meant and how arbitrary it was, and the fact that it really didn't mean anything. So it's all about perspective, how you look at things based on your experience, your beliefs, and how you feel about a certain topic or idea. And so back then, when I first started out, I think my first year reselling, I think I made like $15,000 in gross sales. That was like really pushing it, really hardcore. This was all sorts of stuff, not Magic the Gathering at all. I wasn't involved in that. It was like reselling from thrift stores and things like that. And I was just like, wow, all these people are talking about this golden number of $100,000 in gross sales, which sounds like an amazing thing, sounds like an impossible thing when you're first starting out. So it's really important to look at that at different angles and different points of view. So that's why perspective is kind of like my word for the day. Um, you can't, the old, you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can't look at a situation or a person or a business or a stream or a channel or anything like that without really understanding the trials and tribulations that they went through, the time, the effort, the energy, the blood, sweat, and tears, and all that. And it's easy to just look at something. I mentioned this before, where you want to go from point A to point B, and it simply doesn't work like that. And it's important to appreciate the progress, and the journey is really the part that actually matters. And this is what I mean by that. So when I first started reselling, and it was like this whole goal of $100,000, this arbitrary number. It was a big number. It was a round number, which everyone always focuses on round numbers: 10,000, 100,000, million, whatever it is, billion. And when you start to understand that those the numbers mean nothing, you can start to understand what your own goals are and what you're trying to do, and how your goals mean something to you, and it means nothing to anybody else. There's other words for it, like keeping up with the Joneses, all that kind of stuff. But really, it's about understanding what you want to do, what your goals are, and what is special for you. For example, you don't have to do reselling or make a channel or all these things for to make $1 billion. That's not really what the goal ever should be. Really, it should be for whatever you're trying to work towards. And it could be something simple, honestly. Think about it this way. Let's say that your goal was to make a vacation fund for your family, and you needed $5,000 for the next year to go on a cruise with your family or something like that, whatever it happens to be. If you break down numbers like that, it's actually really simple. It's $100 a week. Now, can the average person make $100 a week reselling? Sure. When you're first starting out, that number is really intimidating, even $100. It seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. It really is. But as you kind of move on, you kind of start to add some zeros. You kind of like change the way you look at those numbers, because they change the way that you work, the progresses that you have, logistics, everything like that, and you start to become more efficient in the way you work at things. The point of this is when you see certain people, and again, I use reselling for most of my examples because that's kind of what I do. That's what I really know. Never compare yourself to anybody else and their progress and what they're doing. Good example. Sometimes in my whatnot shows, there are some people that go really wild and they buy a bunch of stuff and they're really digging for stuff and they have a really good time. And sometimes people comment and say, wow, I wish I could do that. You have to understand that just doesn't happen. They don't just all of a sudden have those funds to do that kind of thing. That takes years of work, years of practice, and gaining wealth and all that. And it doesn't just happen overnight. And so you can't compare yourself to what that person's doing, because you have no idea what their situation is. You have no idea what their financial goals are, what their financial situation is, what their just long-term, short-term goals are in general. So it's when you're starting out anything, it doesn't matter what it is. Here's a perfect example. This is what made me think about this. Was I was driving home from work today, and I like to listen to like a podcast on my way home, and I happened to listen to a podcast from about 8 months ago. It was Mr. Beast was on Joe Rogan. And I was like, I hadn't seen this one, so I started watching it, and it was like a half-hour ride I was on, and I think he has like 385 million subscribers or something like that on his YouTube channel. And I looked at Joe Rogan's because I was on his podcast, and he had 19.5 million. So perspective. Look at Mr. Beast, look at Joe Rogan. And I think Joe Rogan's amazing. He's like one of the biggest voices, I think, and open-minded people there is. And he'll listen to anybody, and he's viewed in a very positive light, I think, by most people. And if you look at his numbers versus Mr. Beast's numbers, you think he's a rookie starting out. He's not doing jack shit. But it's not true. When you compare, say, his numbers to my numbers, obviously, I'm the rookie that doesn't know jack shit and I'm learning. So again, you can't um, compare anything like that. The biggest thing is focus on what you're doing, focus on what your goals are and how you want to move forward. Again, I mentioned something like in a couple of videos ago, like a few videos ago. I was like, man, if I ever reach like 100 subscribers, it'd be amazing. And I actually did. I hit 100 subscribers. I'm actually, I think, at 109 making this video. It's super awesome. Like again, for me, that's like the most incredible thing in the world. Like seeing numbers like a million or whatever. That's just you can dream about that. You can think about that, and you can fantasize about having those goals. That's good, but have goals in between as you're kind of going through it and just seeing the progress as you go. But the biggest thing that you shouldn't do, in my opinion, or anybody shouldn't do. And I really started to grow when I stopped doing this was comparing myself to other people. Whenever I started a new platform or whenever I started a new selling, you know, on like a whatnot, for example, when I started off, there's these people that have like 50,000 sales and they're doing all these crazy numbers. And it's like, you can't just start out that way. That takes a long time. And you can't compare yourself to what they're doing because you're not doing what they're doing because you're not them. So you have to be yourself. And so really focus on what your specialty is, work on your strengths. If you have weaknesses, work on them too. But I mean, focus on your strengths for now, build on your weaknesses, and make them stronger. Um, kind of this is a subtopic that I was actually going to make in a separate video, but you know what? While it's on my mind, I think I'm going to make it now because it kind of goes with this. So about just kind of being yourself, because one thing I think has actually helped me in certain ways is I have like severe ADD and I have very bad OCD. Diagnosed. It's just I've had it since I was a kid. This is how I am. And so for the longest time, it was like I knew I had like the worst memory and I couldn't retain things and all that. And I realized like it wasn't a bad memory. I just have it's kind of like that movie Memento. You know the movie Memento where the guy like the scenes go backwards and the guy can't make new memories. That's kind of like how I feel sometimes. It's not because I can't make new memories, it's because I can't focus long enough to retain it, is really what it is. Oh, I don't have a bad memory, I just can't retain it and create new things unless it's really like something super, super important to me. That's why like time frames are really bad for me and all that. And so when I'm saying that because I try not to compare myself to other people when it comes to failures, successes, things like that, because I'm my own person. And I use that some people would say like ADD is like an ailment. I try to use like a weapon as much as I can. I think everyone has these imperfections within them and you can use it like a weapon if you really want to. The way my ADD works, it ironically enough, we started talking about a video about perspective. Now we're talking about ADD. There you go. That's how it works. But I'm going to run with it. When you start finding the little strengths in the weaknesses, you can start using them as a weapon and do some real damage with them. It allows me to multitask a lot. I can get a million micro tasks done really quickly, and I can make lists, I can knock things out, and it's really productive. It's really good like that. So I don't compare myself to other people. I never do anymore. Early on, when I was younger and I was starting things out, of course you do. That's just how it works. I want to be where they are. I want to do what they're doing over there. But I think once you understand that, again, it's your perspective on that based on your experiences and what you think you should be doing. When in reality, you should just be doing what you want to be doing. And if you have those strengths and weaknesses like I do, use them. Figure out a way to make them work for your advantage. It was funny because finally I got to the point where I was like, I had to kind of like do something to work on my OCD and things like that, which I have been, and it's helping. But like I swear, the ADD is funny. Like I hope it never goes away because it helps me get a lot done. Um, but in a productive way. Once you start knowing how to utilize it properly. Like sure, I could be flaky and there's a shiny quarter over there, there's a shiny quarter over there, there's shiny quarters everywhere. But when you start learning how to control it and you can really attack certain things and do really well with it when you practice and do that and it can help a lot. Um, I did a lot of rambling on this show on this video, but you know what? That's just kind of how it's going to go on here. So, um, just know that like don't compare yourself to other people what they're doing. Don't look at somebody who's successful, whatever that word means, because it doesn't honestly, that's a personal opinion of what success is. Sometimes I feel like I'm successful in what I'm doing, sometimes I feel like I'm failing in what I'm doing. It depends on the day, it depends on how things are going. But don't compare yourself to other people because it doesn't matter what they're doing and what their journey is and what their goals are, because that's what their choice is. And it can be completely different for somebody else. If your goal is to, again, like I said, something as simple, make a couple $1,000s a year to go on a vacation once a year, and like selling a couple magic cards or thrifting items and selling them pays for vacation. And if that's your success goal, that's awesome. That's all you need to do. Don't even think that you have to go any farther than it. Maybe it's enough where you can do the little side hustle to pay your bills, and that's how you make a living. Like that, that's could be someone else's success. Some people can make $1 billion and still never feel successful. So don't ever feel that just because that person has a fancier car or a bigger house, that none of that really means a goddamn thing. It really doesn't. Someone had a good quote on my Whatnot show the other day. What they say? It was like, rather have the cool things in a boring house or something like that. I forget what it was, but it was like basically saying it's like you don't always have to show the success outward as long as you feel it inwards, and you'll be good. But don't compare yourself to other people and what they're doing, because it's more important to how you feel about your progress and how you're doing.